Bria, you are married. You ain't got no business checking out another man's package. I can look, can't I? Plus, this is as good as it gets for me. Well, looking too hard might get you pregnant. Plus, if it's as big as you claim it is, I'm sure he's already got a tribe of kids running around the city. Well, Karita, welcome to Rock With Me. We made it to chapter 7, run ins. So I'm going to do a quick recap of the chapter. It starts out with Brittany, Sabria, and Dolores. They're at the gym. And Dolores, she finishes up her workout and she goes and sits by Brittany, or not Brittany, Sabria. And they're waiting on Brittany to finish up. And so while she's sitting there waiting with Sabria, she notices Sabria is checking out a guy. So then the chapter goes on and they end up in the store and um Brittany, no, not Brittany, Dolores actually gets hit by a shopping cart. And I don't know if you've ever gotten hit by a shopping cart, but um
I
yeah, I do know sometimes if you are a Christian or believer, you may forget that that you are, because I know I'm not a cusser, but definitely shopping carts on the hill have conjured up some possible
Well, you
curse
did
words.
bring out some words, huh?
Yes, ma'am. But that's not really what I want to focus on in this chapter. I want to really focus on Sabria's situation, because the thing is, she's checking out this guy, but she's married. And we find out some chapters prior that she's actually in an unfavorable marriage. She's in a marriage where her husband takes, and he's not really willing to give back to her. And just like a lot of us have believed or still believe that, God hates divorce. So we feel like we're supposed to just be stuck in these marriages and just be miserable for the rest of our lives. So a lot of people who do that, who just sit in marriages, find ways to kind of um, compensate for what they're not getting. And so I want to start the discussion off by asking you, if we are not being satisfied in our marriages at home, do you think it's okay for us to entertain our lusts with other men and women?
Absolutely not. Um, Marriage is a choice of something that you both agreed to do, and it did say in your vows, good or bad, for better or for worse, rich or poor. Um, I feel like if one or the other falls short with something, he or she, in whatever area is lacking, should do everything they can to fulfill. That's just like if I lose my eyesight, my hearing will probably get more intense.
Yeah.
So if you lose the ability of pleasing him or her, either party, you need to make sure you're stronger in the other areas that that person lacks in. That's our jobs as husband and wife. because you're in a relationship. Sometimes it's compromise. It should not just be take, and don't give. But I feel like it still doesn't give you the outlet to go outside of your marriage. If it's not going to work, then you all need to sit down and come to a mutual agreement of that, because at this point, the vows are no longer just about the vows, but it is the commitment you made before God.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Now, going to this next question. After being divorced yourself,
Mhm.
what does your definition of till death do us part means or looks like now?
Yeah, that question I was waiting on, and I'm going to be honest. Uh, what marriage looked like through my eyes now is the same way it looked then. Um, if I had to do it again, I would, because I was unhappy. And I just don't believe that I have to stay in something that has me in a different place where I'm unhappy. Um, what I am guilty of that I would do different, I stopped praying for the marriage. I
Okay.
pray for us as individuals, but I stopped praying for the marriage. Um, that part I will hold myself accountable for, because in many ways I know I was anointed enough to be able to pray us through, but I didn't want to. And I can honestly say that. And when this question came across, I had to think about that thing. And I chuckled to myself because I'm like, wow, Krita, what would you say? And I'm like, I would say the same thing, because I was in an unhappy place that was starting to affect my physical and had been affecting my mental, but I wasn't aware. I was
Hmm.
stressed. I was stressed and didn't know it. Which created me to go into some physical health issues, because I just kept going and kept moving and not really having time to deal with me, because I'm dealing with a broken marriage and
Hmm.
I'm dealing with two children who I have who needs both parents, but I felt like both parents were not really there. And I felt married but single.
Yeah.
So for me, I would do what I did. I would give him the freedom he needs, because if I said to him, and I had, are you happy? And he said yes. And I said, how can you be if I'm unhappy? That's a problem. If your spouse is not happy and you say you're happy, something is wrong with that.
Right. Yeah. That.
So that's for me. Yes, I would say the same thing I said 13, however many years ago it's been. I would say that now. And I'm stronger and wiser.
Yeah.
But I probably would have moved a lot faster. And I would have listened in the beginning, is what I would have done. Then I wouldn't have had to make that
Yeah.
choice.
I would have to say it definitely started out with me thinking just, just in general. And I think most people like we till death really like physical death.
Hmm.
Like we have to be in this no matter what until we die. And
Yeah.
when you're at that altar, you're because you're happy and you're on one accord at that moment. You're
Yes,
thinking,
sir.
oh, he's or she is thinking the same thing as I am, and it's not
Yes, sir.
necessarily so.
Right.
People become complacent, especially when they're getting what they want, and
Most
some people
definitely.
just, they're just not naturally, they're used to receiving, and it's optional sometimes when they have to give.
Yes.
But I would have to say that I've learned, especially being a believer in Christ. So,
Hmm.
for those who don't believe in Christ, I feel actually going back to that first question, the question about whether or not you should entertain your lust and stay in the marriage, to me, it all depends on what you believe.
Hmm.
So, because we kind of established that a lot of, since our marriages are kind of mirroring the world's marriages, a lot of us aren't really waiting on God to put our marriages together.
Which
um,
was the first mistake for me.
yeah. But as
And
a believer, I honestly understand now because our God is spiritual. Things happen in the spiritual realm first. So,
mhm,
and that's even with divorce. When you're headed for divorce, that till death does us part means that there was a spiritual death somewhere. And so,
well,
so
you
like,
don't get to it overnight either. Like, you
No.
don't just, the average person don't wake up and just be like, I want a divorce. There had to be steps to this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And some of us probably knew at the time of saying I do, technically, if we just be honest, that we probably shouldn't have said I do.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes people have worn everything but the t-shirt and said, don't do it. The day of the wedding, don't do it. It's not too late. But for plenty reasons, people choose to stay or go through it because that part of you, human, says, well, we can work through that. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Or it'll get better. Or,
Or not even human, your ignorance or your fear,
that
because
part, all
I
of
know with me, I was a new mom. I
it.
didn't really have the support of my mom. I had the support of my dad, but that was unusual. Like, growing
Yeah.
up, my dad wasn't there, but he kicked in. So that was something that wasn't stable. And so I
Right.
just felt like I
That wasn't
realized
familiar.
no, it wasn't familiar. I wasn't sure. It wasn't a
Yeah.
stable situation. So with my ex, I liked his family, and I like that, because I'm naturally
Mhm.
drawn to family. And I know with me going back, like looking back, I I had no intentions, honestly, on getting married. Like that wasn't my desire.
Mhm.
So I felt like I think in some ways, if I would say no, that he would totally cut me off. So
Right.
sometimes we're not saying yes to the person. We're saying yes because we don't
In the
want
situation.
to. Yeah, like we're comfortable in the situation.
That's
But I
right.
also wanted to add that, um, just for people, because some people may, take this and say, "Well, I'm not happy," and leave. And so for
No, no.
again, for the non-believers,
Right.
whatever you believe, that that's your prerogative. But as far as believers go, we have to wait until God gives us the way of escape. And so
And-
with
Right.
me, my way of escape was when he actually physically, I mean, he actually verbally said, I'm not changing. So he was
Hmm.
letting me know I'm not changing. And so
Hmm.
in essence, he abandoned me. And so I
Hmm.
look at now, like going back to that spiritual aspect where it happens in the spirit realm first. He
Hmm.
divorced me. Because the crazy thing, Karita,
Hmm.
was that when once I said, okay, well, if you're not going to love me like we're married, then we're gonna stop acting like we're married. So after 10 years, I decided I'm not having sex with you until until you show that you care about me mentally and physically. So I
Hmm.
moved out and from our room, or our suite, because we kind of had a suite, and I
Hmm.
moved with my daughter in her room. And so me and the kids were playing this game called Sequence one day. And sometimes kids can see in the spiritual realm. So my son, he looks at me and he says, "Ma, you look like a widow." Now, mind you, he was 10 years old, I think. And he said, "You look like a widow." And so I ignored him because I said, "What? What is he talking about?" And I was thinking, is something happening to his dad as we speak? So I was freaking out. And so I ignored him. And he said, "Ma, did you hear me? You look like a widow." And I said, "I heard you." And he said, "You know what a widow is?" And he started explaining it. So I honestly know that God will he will give you clues. You don't like at that time in our life, I wasn't thinking about divorce. There was a time
Hmm.
where I was, but when
Hmm.
I I was really in faith, like, God, you're going to change this around. So divorce
Hmm.
wasn't even on my mind. So I just
Right.
wanted to put that out there for believers. If you
Hmm.
make a covenant, or you make a covenant with someone, you have to stay in there until God releases you. And he
Yeah.
will release you. He will release you with his word, because my word was a person that does not take care of his family is worse than an unbeliever. And so that
Yeah.
was my release. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to share that for
And I
those
want
who
to make sure that people know too, for those who will be watching, I'm most definitely not telling anybody because that was my personal experience to do it because I'm going to give you the what the word said for sure. In all thy ways acknowledge him and he shall. That's a promise. Direct your path. So for me, I had already been having things prior to my divorce. So my divorce didn't just, like I said, come overnight. These things I was prepared a year before it even happened. So when it actually got to the time of things getting ready to happen, I was in that place. Again, I was ready. And I really believe he was, but he wouldn't say that.
Mm.
Again, that's just like me saying I'm unhappy and he's still saying he's happy. Some people just do not want to sit in the seat of it won't happen or it can't happen or I don't want it to happen. Because we're concerned about how people see us versus how
Mm-hmm.
we see each other. And don't get me wrong, I believe that how people see you is most definitely important, but I'm most definitely concerned more how God sees me. And I want to make sure I'm doing things that God will be pleased with, period. And I know that God honors marriage, but I
Yeah.
also know that that wasn't a marriage that God had ordained, but it was something that I decided to go ahead with because I loved and said, okay, well, we can make it work. Again, we had a child. Woo, this is a new type of situation. I come from a family with a longevity of marriages. Let's go for it. And even then, still when I stood there, I was still uncertain. But the Karita in me would not bow down, of course, and be like, oh my God, we got 300 something people here. I can't tell these people I'm changing my mind. But reality of it is, when I think back, we should have did that. Because
Yeah,
what
I
we
think
had
if I had a chance to go back, I probably would have done that. Like, y'all, we just getting ready to have a big party.
yeah. And you know what though? You would free up not only him or free up her, but the entire family, the people that are connected. So many people wouldn't have to feel the wrath of what happens when you no longer are together. If you think about it, because you could have just said, you know what? It's a few minutes to tell somebody something that can be a lifetime for you. You get what I'm saying? It would have took what 2.25 seconds to tell people, "Hey y'all, I'm sorry, it ain't gonna happen." You would have heard some oohs, some ahs, and some ohs, but people would have laughed. They would have talked about it, but
Yeah.
we would have made ultimately the best decision for the both of us. So we took on a whole life journey together, and I mean, out of it, we gained two children, but then still there was consequences that came with that. So I tell anybody from a Christian person, from a Christian to a non-Christian believer, listen, whatever you do, make sure that it's the right decision for you, not for the situation, not for the circumstances, but for you. And make sure that you both are genuinely on the same page. Now, I am a firm believer, it don't take a long time. When you know you're ready for something, you're ready. You don't have to think about it. That's like if you ask me today, Karita, would you get married again? Absolutely. I don't have to think. I don't have a doubt. I don't, you know what I'm saying? I know that. But would I ever do what I did the first time, the second time? Absolutely not.
Yeah, especially when you have those warning signs. But I have to say, I had people either saying congratulations or you're stupid. And I didn't really trust them because they were haters. Like, nobody really sat down
Yeah.
and said, Sheree, do you know what you're getting into? Because my parents weren't married, so I didn't know. But I do
Right.
know now that I'm more mature and older, that some of the stuff that was going on was like warning signs. Like, some of the behaviors were like warning signs. So if I had to do it all over again, knowing what I know now, I mean, that has to be a factor. I would definitely say, you know what, we just gonna have a big party. Come on, y'all. We gonna do, what was it, the percolator? We just gonna do the percolator. But also just being clear with people who are in bad marriages. When your spouse knows exactly what they're supposed to do and they
No.
refuse to do it, when you're communicating, this is what I need. Because abandonment, you think of just the idea of abandonment, you're leaving me to fend for myself. You're leaving me out, just out to dry. Anything can happen. If you abandon a child, there's nothing the child can do. You're leaving them out in the elements as prey. And so
Mhm.
there's certain things like the marriage bed is undefiled. So when your spouse is saying, I need this, and even to the degree of me, because
Mhm.
we were, intimate in that way, but he was ignoring the needs of having or needing the attention
Emotional.
that I need emotionally, needing the attention, and then just even taking me out. And that's
Mhm.
still a form of cheating because he was hanging out with other women, and then he would
Mhm.
come tell me about it. This was something I am very, when I don't leave people to wonder what I want. Even with
Mhm.
my kids, I'm very vocal on, this is what I want. I just told my son, you owe me a birthday gift. I'm expecting the birthday gift. So with him, I was very direct. And
Yes.
so he pretty much, nope, I'm not giving you this. That's what I got. And so that was a form of cheating. We don't look at that as a form of cheating. But if I'm constantly serving you, and then I'm running from adultery because other men, I'm trying my best to look sexy, whatever, and other men are noticing, but here the husband, the one I need, he's not. So that is again a form of abandonment when they know this is what I'm supposed to do. You've articulated it, because the word says, ask and you shall receive. And so even if they were confused, you're not confused now. I'm telling you that. And so when they're saying, I'm not budging, that is a form of abandonment. And that is, that's what I'm asking this question. I get it now. Spiritual abandonment is still like death.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? I think it's so ironic that you say that, because just think about it. And it's been proven. If you notice, when one dies, another is born.
Yeah.
Typically, you have marriages and then you have deaths. They just simultaneously fall in that order in most families. Somebody is dying, somebody's getting married. So, in order for something to live, something has got to die. But the thing is, in a marriage, a relationship, it's two words. It takes two people.
Yeah.
If we want this to work, and I open this up to anybody, whatever you do, counselors, keep them on your Rolodex, because guess what? We are not above, even Christians. You need a counselor, and get your spiritual one, of course, but someone that you can really sit down and talk to. Because when I offered counseling as an option in my situation, that was shut down for reasons, and so people think counseling is somebody teaching you how to respect them, because if you don't like something they do, it's not that I don't respect you, it's I don't like it. Or somebody saying to you, well, I don't see the point in us going, then you don't want to go. You don't,
Yeah.
because if I'm telling you we got a problem, the counselor is to help us kind of lay it out on the platform. You say how you feel, and you need to be honest. You say how you feel, she say how she feel, he says how he feel. Then we write this stuff down, because it goes back to the word too. Write the vision, make it play. You gotta write stuff out sometimes, and then after you write it out, then sometimes you can better understand. But like you said, some people just really don't want to do it. Then you don't want to do it. But you
And you
said
know
you had
why? Because some people don't get married for the right reason. Or a lot of us don't get married for the right reason. Some, like when they say, that's why I'm a little leery about when a man finds a wife, he finds a good thing. Because I can call you wife, but I'm not really looking for you to help me. So it could be that he was tired of going to bed by himself. He wanted some living, sex, or he was tired of doing the dishes and washing clothes. So
hey,
he
some
wanted you
people
to
get
fill
married
that
for
space,
those
but
reasons.
he wants you to fill that space, but he does not want you to help him with other things. And the way God wants, he intends us to sharpen each other. And so one of the signs that someone is not ready is when you say we need counseling and they say, I don't need no help. What? That's a sign. Like, and that was actually my sign too. Because I didn't know. Somebody did say, are you going to counseling? And I'm like, are we? And he was like, I don't need no counseling. But I didn't know no better, so, but now I understand when you're saying you don't want anybody to mediate, you're saying I don't need help, and you're going according to how
And you
you
have to understand, when you say you don't need counseling, then you need counseling. Because let me tell you
right.
why. Even the greatest of the greatest needs somebody. And it again, if we go back to the word, he says, Mark the perfect man. And what I love about it is God has somebody in every situation that really can be of a help and a service to you wherever you may be, even at your lowest. So when I hear people say, I don't need any help, I get nervous,
Oh yeah, now
because
I do.
because you haven't arrived that you don't need no help. That's just like saying you know it all and you don't. We all are in a position where we can learn something, hear something, and you can even look at other relationships and be like, wow, you know what? I like that. Maybe that'll work for us. You know what I'm saying? But you got to try something in order to know what will and what won't. Outside of
Especially when you've never done it before. If you've never been
exactly.
married, you want to sit down and say, okay, I want to make sure I understand what I'm going into, instead
Because
of,
people get 50 years, 30 years, honey, you just getting started, baby. They got a lot they can tell you. The
yes.
do's and the
And
don'ts.
what people don't honestly understand is that we're changing. So when you think you know somebody, you know them at their 20-year-old person, but they got to
Exactly.
go get to 30 and 40, and because life changed, their interests may change,
Yes, you got to be
things that
grateful.
so and you just need to every once in a while get an alignment. It's kind of like with the car. Get an alignment and say, okay, are we still on the same page? Are we still walking together?
Listen, even a car gotta
Absolutely.
have tune-ups and oil changes
Right.
after so many miles. So just think about us as humans. You still have to go to the doctor and get a physical once a year. They want to make sure everything is great. Females, you go get your mammograms and if you think that your physical has to go through this, what do you think about you in a relationship? Because you still need to do what it took to get him or her. And I think what happens is a lot of the times, again, and I don't want to jump ahead because we got some other things to discuss. We can get really comfortable and we can get really complacent
Yeah.
because we feel like, well, they ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. And that's how the door opens up for infidelity. That's how the door opened up for your eyes to get glued somewhere else. Like it
Girl,
was, who was Sabria?
girl,
Who was Sabria? Because her fulfillments weren't being met at home. So it's easy to look at somebody else and be like, wow, I wonder. Don't give a person a reason to look outside
yeah, but
when
when you're complacent, sometimes you don't care. Like I literally had a friend where because he didn't marry for her husband didn't marry her for love. He married her for convenience. He married her because his mother told him that she was a good woman to marry. But he didn't have the tools, nor was he interested, at least at the time that she kind of, let me in and let me know what was going on because I was jealous of her. I thought, oh, she, her husband is always there. But then when I actually started talking to her, she was telling me it wasn't what I thought. So sometimes people you have to ask why, or at least pray and make sure we're getting married for the right reason because there is a helpmeet. That definition is a helpmate. And so that means if I'm a helpmate, we both are helping because I'm a helpmate. He's a mate, helpmate, and I'm a helpmate. And so we're mated together to help each other. If you don't want no help, you ain't got no business to get married.
no, no,
Yeah.
and so that's the thing though. But again, you gotta pray about that thing before you jump off into the sea. Like I tell anybody, use all of the warning signs. I'm talking about even the lights that look a little dim. Pay attention to them too. Because people who say, well, I wasn't in church. Because I know people who weren't in church and they just got married because, again, some families arrange marriages. Some, everybody's story is different. Some is just like, well, I just think it's dope to spend the rest of your life like with your best friend, have a companion, but they're not ready for the intimacy part because they
Right.
struggle with it. So again, everybody have a reason. But what I'm saying is, you need to make sure that you for sure,
Hmm.
when you get ready to say I do to somebody, because I do means I do. It
Right.
really isn't no gray area with that. It's either or. You're gonna do it or you're not gonna do it. But if you're not gonna do it, these are the consequences for what's going to happen. And understanding that marriage is work. Like you said, when we got married in our 20s, we were much younger. Man, things probably in 20s, we probably were high heads and would fly off. When you get to your 30s and 40s, kind of mellowing out because you're like, look, we gotta go to work, we gotta get up in the morning. All right, whatever you say, honey, we'll deal with that tomorrow. You get 40, 50s, you like, listen, I done signed out. What you talking about?
Yeah.
You're on a whole nother your tolerance is different. And so you have to learn that dealing with people because they're two totally different individuals. I'm sure when you were married to your husband, ex-husband, there were things that you knew about him that you were like, ooh, boy, you probably should have shown me that. Like, a couple of days ago, I probably would have been thinking about that. You know, you don't know. You don't, and people say, well, I want to live with them before I marry them. You can live with people 20 years and still have no clue.
Yep. Because when
You
you're
can,
not, if you're not tuned in or you don't care,
yeah.
you already kind of make your mind up about what you think about them. And like I said, I know I'm not the same. Like I look back and realize, wow, the way I thought, and then some of the things that I took, it was because of how I thought of myself. But
Yeah,
now I'm totally not that same girl.
yeah.
So yeah, even you change, and you recognize that in yourself.
Key word, you said same girl. Like when you got married, you're in your 20s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got married. I was 26, 27, one of them close to 30. But the point I'm making is my tolerance was different.
Right.
Attention span was different. I had less stress.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you get into it, you don't get all these memos. I mean, you go up the examples that's
Right.
been set before you, and then you see some things and you're like, I ain't doing that for sure. You know what I mean? But you don't really know. So you start learning this stuff as you go, and you're like, oh, I don't like that. Oh, I like that though. That there are certain things that I took away from my ex that I'm sorry, I was accustomed to that. So yeah, I'm probably gonna expect that plus. You know what I'm saying? There are other things that I'm like, absolutely not. Not
Mm-hmm.
even not even on the side, not even by accident will I tolerate it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we are individuals, and in being individuals, you are going to live and you're going to learn that there are some things you have to make sure you are compatible with people, and
Right.
that's in
That's
all
it.
capacities, like spiritually, mentally, physically. Are we compatible? And in physical, for me, I hope whoever, Lord, let him be more energetic so that they can help pull me to the not like not overbearing, but like let's go, babe. We gotta get to you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because some people need that motivation. But you need to make sure that you're compatible with this person. Don't settle for a person. Don't go decide to be with a person because they financially stable and you decide that you don't want to work because that comes with a price tag too.
Right.
Um, you need somebody to boost your self esteem. You better love you first. Don't go into something all jacked up your self esteem and you're insecure. Don't take all of that stuff into a relationship. Get all of you together, all of it,
Yeah. And
because
and 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 to be mindful of, because some people go in and like you said, he's financially stable. I want him
yes,
to take care of me. You still have to work, because if you're giving him that much control of all the finances, him taking care of you, he can drop you that quick too. And so if
okay,
but some girls go in, or some, I guess I can say some guys go in thinking, oh, I'm gravy. Like this
yeah,
is this is a sure thing. And they get lazy, and then they stop taking care of themselves, not realizing that if you're not doing nothing and you're not willing to, and you think he's supposed to or she's supposed to do this, that you've given them so much power over your life that, for
wow,
one, girls and guys, they're reckless. They don't care.
yeah,
They come in, I'll do this and I'll do that, and any little thing is better than what you giving. You're gonna get dry boot, and you're gonna have to
yeah,
figure your whole life out in an
because you left
instant.
it all in the hands of one person. I
Yes.
have a I have an older relative who I love dearly, phenomenal, but she went through so much in her life at one point. Her We come from a family where the husbands took care of the wives, but he literally took care of everything. Like she didn't know how much the mortgage was, she didn't know. But then when they went through their tragic part of him, stepping out, and then she came into this like, I don't even know how to
Yeah.
work because I've never worked. I don't even know how much the mortgage is. And he was doing things that was creating them to be in a deficit. And I was much younger. And it's funny, I still say the Lord always put me with what I like to call my OGs, my seasoned people. And so I ended up kind of going in, helping her navigate, like, hey, listen, you're gonna be okay. Get a job. And she looking at me like, I'm 50 years old. Get a job to do what? Whatever you want to do. But you want to do something because this is what's happening in your finances. But once she got a grip of that, honey, that messed his whole flow up. He was like, what you doing? She was like, I'm going to work. And then she messed around and owned her own business. Oh, that was a whole nother game changer. So I tell you need to have you together. That's one thing I am adamant about with young ladies. Please have you together. And I'm not saying we're going to be perfect. No. But you need to be secure in your finances and things about yourself. Don't wait for somebody. Now, the Lord may bless you, him or her, with a good spouse that maybe is the better financial person. And that's fine. You all work that out amongst yourself. But when I say you need to come to the table with something, you need to have something, it's imperative.
But you got this American dream. A lot of people are just everything easy peasy. They're buying into this thing, like, you don't have to work hard. God, you go back to Genesis. He gave Adam a job before he gave him a wife. And then when the wife came, she was supposed to help him. He did not make us to just dress and rest. He didn't make us to be lazy. So people who don't want to work, for one, they shouldn't be getting married at all. And I don't know even how how you expect to survive, because lazy people, when you're lazy, that you can live off of people for so long, but after a while they're going to drop you. And so you usually end up there's a proverb that says something about why the lazy person is asleep, that there's weeds that are overtaking his garden or something like that, where eventually he's going to end up poor, so
Yeah,
people are, there's a lot of people who are lazy and they look for people who work hard. That's why I said you need a partner. You should never get with anybody who's not doing anything and you're doing
no.
everything, because they're going to, of course, do whatever they think is possible to get you. But once
And
they
it
feel like they
doesn't
have
mean,
you, they're going to
and it
sit
don't
down
mean
on
that
you.
your income and his income or her income will always be equivalent.
No,
But
just a
because
partner contributing to the
yes,
household is what I
you
mean.
need to be adding, not taking away. It always needs to be some addition and multiplying in the family. Because
Yes.
I don't care if the family consists of just you and him or you and her. That's a family. That's a unit. And if you want anything out of life, and you should, in this spiritual realm, please want something out of life. You know who our Father is. You should want something out of life. You need to expect something. Um, don't
But
put
that's what we have to test, because
yes,
givers usually attract takers. And
yes,
so for those who are givers, we can't let people rush. When people are trying to rush to get married, they're trying
yes,
to hide something and they're trying to bamboozle you, especially when you're nice and sweet. You got to slow people down. But there's a lot of lazy people who are just looking for somebody to leech off of, and we have to be
yeah.
mindful of that.
Yeah, we all probably have been exposed. I have. Not so much as even a lazy person, but just a person seeing somebody and like, oh, she nice.
Hmm.
Let me see what I can, Yeah, been there, done
And
that
just
kind
do
of
the bare minimum to try to keep. Girl,
stuff.
it's just so much going on. But again, we got to sift through that tree of good and evil, and
Yes.
we need the Holy Spirit to help us, because some people are just really good at what they do. And if you're not a good liar, you gonna get played. Somebody said some people are just anointed, and you can't beat them.
Man.
You can't chase
Listen,
a person who can lie good. You might as well just give it up to God, because you can't outlie them. You can't
this
outlie them.
is why I understand why God said he hated a liar. At first I was like, that's a little strong, but oh, I get it. Because when somebody has lied to you, you're like, are you serious? Like your whole demeanor change. You're
Mhm.
like, who lies about that? But people will lie about as the children say, the darndest things. People will really lie about those things. So I get it. And like you said, we just have to be careful. I tell anybody, marriage is a wonderful thing. It is, and what marriage is to be is wonderful.
Right.
But make sure that you are with the person that is compatible. Don't let going through one relationship make you bitter. I'm bona fide better. I'm not bitter, and I
Oh,
wasn't bitter at
absolutely.
the time, and I'm not bitter now. And you know what else? I love the fact that I can still love on you despite how you may have mistreated me, and that took some growth and development. It didn't come overnight, but I'm grateful that I'm at that point in my life. Like it's like, oh, okay, that's fine. We ain't
Yeah.
gonna do it two times though, but yeah, we done with that.
But
And I like.
I have to say, because I like giving kudos where kudos is needed. But he actually apologized to me. My ex apologized to me in front
And
of the
that's
kids. Yeah.
yeah, awesome. And you know what? The funny part is my ex apologized, but the funny part is the Lord dealt with me. I was on a sabbatical. And I felt like now I didn't think I was perfect. I was like, and I'm still standing on this. I was a good wife. However, in this spiritual race that we're on, the Lord had me on a sabbatical and it told me that I needed to call him and apologize. And I said, for what? I didn't do nothing. I didn't know what he did. Like I was battling with that for a couple of minutes for real, because I was like, okay, now I'm trying to help this make some sense. And this is when that thing came back to me that I heard people say at church a lot. God will have you do some stuff sometimes it don't make no sense.
Right.
Man, had me do some stuff that just didn't make no sense, but I realized that it wasn't about me. And so when I was obedient to what God said, oh my God, it was as if, first of all, it was an uplift off of him because I think he needed to know that I wasn't angry because sometimes the devil will have you wallowing in your own stuff. Have
Hmm.
you, and so I called him, and although he apologized to me a million times, and I would be like, dude, I forgive you, I'm over it. But what I thought I was over when I was on my sabbatical, yeah, the Lord showed me that I wasn't. And so I had to ask him to forgive me because reality was I was holding on to some stuff and didn't think I was because I didn't have time to deal with any of my own stuff because I had to deal with two children who were battling a whole divorce. Because when you go through a divorce, it's not just about you and the person you're
Yeah.
divorcing. If children are involved, so all that time and when I did that, just the mere obedience, honey, that was an uplift that I was like, God, I thank you. I don't even I thank you because I didn't even realize I had that. But it took for that, and it was funny because he was a bona fide texter. I said, listen, I got time for that texting stuff. If you cannot talk verbally, and so
I
he
can't do
actually
whole conversations in text, and I be trying to tell guys that, but
I can't
this
do all
I
that.
get- it's like texting to me is just for real quick stuff. But when you
Yeah,
trying to have a whole conversation, call me.
yes, I ain't doing dialogues.
Yeah.
So he called right away, and he was like, "What's wrong?" Like, and it was so funny. And I just told him what I told him, and I can hear the release in his voice, and that the Lord dropped in my spirit was why I needed to call him
Okay.
because that allowed him to be free. Sometimes we think apologizing is about you. Sometimes you think you did something, so and maybe you did do it because you was holding on to it, and somebody needed to know that you were okay and you weren't angry. And we have to learn how to set other people free. And so when I
I
did
was
that,
I was actually I didn't know that I was already free until
mm-hmm,
I went to the parenting class that they have you
mm-hmm,
take.
yep,
And there was this girl next to me. She was really handling it rough. The presenter was doing the 5 stages of grieving. And every
mm-hmm,
time that he went through one, I'll be like, "Sure enough." And I
yeah,
realized when he got to the end, I already went through this. I was just there
yeah,
getting the certificate, but I was
yeah.
sitting there ministering to her. So
You
I
know that's
realized I was already
that.
released. Yeah.
You know what? For me though, Sheree, I think I went through the form of relief. I could, baby, I could tell you how to get delivered. Do you hear me? And sitting in the seat of needing to be delivered because I've always had to do, go, go, go.
Mhm.
I didn't have a chance to think about me. I just knew how to tell you how to get to it. Not
Right.
realizing all that time, mine was packed down. So that's why when I went on that sabbatical, that's when I realized I wasn't released until I obeyed what God told me to do. And I heard this big sigh in his voice. And it was literally as if something just came up. I was like, ooh, that release wasn't just about him. God, that was releasing me because I thought I
Yeah.
was. And when I went through that class like you, the lady was like, should you be in this class? I was like, yeah, we got to be here to get this
Yeah,
certificate.
right. I was there for that.
Right. So, but
Yeah.
my thing was, I'm not a person who puts on a show. So, even if I'm hurt, you probably won't know it like right out the gate because I'm not this person who I got to think my stuff out. Like, I be trying to cover all bases of,
Well,
okay,
it's just how you are, and the word says that the
yeah,
heart is deceitful, and desperately wicked. Who can know it? So a lot of times your heart is covering things, and you don't know.
yeah,
That's why fasting is important because it reveals our.
mhm,
We don't know ourselves the way we think we know ourselves. But the Holy
mhm,
Spirit knows us more, and He can go into
yeah,
those places where, because we put up walls, it's like a natural thing. It's a
it is.
protection, and a lot of
And
times
I'm
we're not
learning.
faking. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
that we're not aware that, oh,
Oh,
this is hurting me.
and you know what? I knew it wasn't a fake thing. I really was like feeling like I was
Hmm.
okay. But it really took for that sabbatical for me to understand that I wasn't. And when I look back at it, I was like, God, I thank you because had I not gone on this sabbatical, had I not been obedient, I would have still been in the seat of hurt and not realized it. And I deal with things inwardly, so it affects my physical.
Yeah, and then when you're
Because
used to going and going and
yes,
taking care of other people, that's one
yeah,
of the reasons why we need to sit still sometime and just reflect on ourselves. Because when you
exactly.
deny yourself too much,
Yep,
you're also letting things heap up in your heart. And so he has
yep,
to deal with us in the quiet times, but if we never give him quiet time, he can't deal
yeah,
with those things and reveal those things to us. So I do want to go to this next question.
yes.
Okay, so for those who feel like, okay, I'm going to stay, because some people think they're honoring God by staying in marriages that
Mm-hmm.
are not healthy. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that, ask you this though, if we are, but they will again entertain their
Mm-hmm.
lust. So if we are cool with our lustful eyes, then most likely we are not really staying in the marriages because God hates divorce, because He hates the lustful eye too,
Mm-hmm.
along with the divorce. So, in your opinion, why do you think many folks stay in unhealthy relationships?
Mm, a lot of time, as we actually have discussed a little bit, compatibility, comfortable. Um, People, this is all they know. And for some people, those people who are in church, because we know God honors marriage, and
Hmm.
because we're trying to live right, we'll stay. We'll stay.
Yeah. So, and I know we covered, being
Mhm.
comfortable or complacent. We
Yes.
covered financial stability because we really don't
Mm-hmm.
want to work. We didn't really
Yes.
marry them because we wanted to make this work. We just for the
Mhm.
finances. But then too, fear,
Yeah.
fear. I know.
Yeah.
I know a guy who
Mm.
we were talking, we were sharing, and then I was like, well, why don't you, he gonna try to propose like, well, since you miserable and I'm miserable, let's make each other happy. I said, no, that's not why I'm telling you. I'm like, oh my God, no. And so I was like, I'm not, either we're gonna work on it or I'm gonna go my separate ways. And he was like scared because I guess she had threatened to take everything.
Okay.
So some people are stuck there
Yeah.
because of fear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
too.
And it is fearful to leave something you've been accustomed to for so long.
Yeah.
Um, some people become accustomed quickly. It could be a year, 2 years, and they're like, "Well, I've become used to this, so I don't, I don't want to leave." Or some people literally feel like, "Well, they only cussing me out. I mean, they're not putting their hands on me, so it's not that bad." We will justify why it's okay to stay.
Girl, I remember this one, and I actually looked up to her, but she ended up telling me that her boyfriend backhanded her. And I said, "What?" Now that's one thing I was never taught. You're not finna just be physically. I was not gonna be that woman that got physically abused.
Mhm.
But she was okay with. Well, he just kind of backhand, backs. He doesn't ball his fists up. He does it with the open hand. I'm like, girl. So she put up with that because he was financially stable. And I honestly lost respect for her after that. I'm like, if you're trying to convince me that that's okay, because I was telling her about, we were in high school and she was a
Mhm.
little older than me. She had just got her own place. And so she was, doing the big girl
Right.
stuff.
Right.
And so that's why I looked up to her. But my baby daddy had hit me, and I was telling her that she was trying to convince me that that was okay. But I know now looking back that it's because he was financially stable. But that's how some women end up dead with that. You can't play with that physical abuse.
No. And you
No.
know what? One thing leads to the next. Because if he's
Hmm.
cussing you out, verbally abusing you, hitting is coming eventually.
Right.
So, but I just feel like people stay in things out of complacent, being comfortable. Some people stay in things because it's an arranged, family culture, diameters,
Yeah.
all of those things. But again, pray and acknowledge God even in that. I know some things is custom. Be like, listen, God, look, and some people are in their family culture, but they don't believe in all the culture dynamics that comes with that. I'm like, look, I don't want to marry little Ricky. I know my family said his family said I don't want to marry him.
You said not little Ricky, pretty Ricky, what they call him.
He like, give me the script, and to be honest, I mean, if we all kind of just took a step back and said, you know what, I don't want to do this right now, it'd be okay with that. Even if people go through separations in a marriage, I believe that abstinence does make the heart grow fonder for some people. Some people really do need to realize, like, oh my God, they gone. And it is a mind thing where it'd be like, wait a minute. I know I said I wanted, a break, but I really don't want a break. Because reality kicks in. Like, I really do love him. I really do love her. That is situations that happen for some people. Divorce is not everybody's story.
No,
But
yeah, I am a big believer. Separate first and
yeah,
see.
yeah,
Separate because honestly, no matter what, and that's what I tried to do. That was my attempt. But he called divorce, so that really wasn't me who called divorce. But I realized, well, no, he already divorced me, and so, like I said, I never really wanted to get divorced. I like family, and
yeah.
so that's why I held on to that so much because I really do like family.
I'm
Um,
laughing, but not at you. I'm thinking, God, did I not like family? Because
because you weren't trying to.
no, because I was the one who pursued the divorce like quickly. But when you said that, it just made me think I really was divorced a long time before I was physically divorced.
Yeah,
And it can happen. And I love family though. I do. And I'm still like, I still think it's amazing for the girls to still be a part of their family. I love his family. I don't
mm,
there's not no beefing and um and I'm still big on family dynamics because I feel like he and I are not together, but by all means, keep your children involved in what's going on in
right.
your family dynamic because you are gonna need that. They're gonna need that. Like, people need to understand relationships don't work. Please don't divorce your children.
Yeah.
Like, children
But
still,
that all depends on what you believe, honestly, because
yeah,
and
yeah,
that's why you have to be mindful on what spouse you choose, because if that's what they saw, because some men
mhm,
they only like take care of the kids that with the
they
lady
with,
that they're with,
yeah.
and they really do forget
So mad.
about their real kids.
Yeah, and I think it's so. I'll probably never understand that foolery. This is your DNA, like seriously. And I'm not knocking you being a great stepdad. Just be a great dad. Period. Or be a great mom.
Right,
it doesn't
because it
take
can go
anything
that
from you.
way. Yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't take anything from you to still love and be that support system that your children need, despite them not being in the same home, because that's already like a deal breaker for that child. Like, man, I'm used to waking up with my mom and my dad, and now I can't. So they still need to know that they're feeling that love from both parents at all times. Even grown children need to know that they are still loved by their parents.
yeah,
It's just the thing, I know people that are full fledged adults and are battling because they didn't have that relationship with their parents because the one went this way, another went that way, and was like, well,
yeah.
no, so
That was
you
their
got,
foundation,
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
not, it's broken. Even when sometimes when there was a question, I was used to work on the youth ministry.
Mhm,
We were at some kind of event. We were waiting for the kids,
mhm,
and it was a group of people having a conversation, and I was kind of part of the conversation, but I was doing something. So somebody was saying that a friend of theirs, they had been married for like 20 something years or 30 years, and the kids were growing up, and so they were going to announce to the kids that they were divorced. And so
mhm.
the question, or the question that was going back and forth was it good for them to wait until the kids got older, or should they have divorced earlier? And
Mhm.
so some of them were like, no, well, I think them waiting because now the kids are going off to college, and so then this is a good time to do it. And I chimed in and I said, I don't think so. They're stepping out to do the biggest, one of the biggest things that they've ever done, and now their foundation is taken away. I feel like as soon as you should kind of sit down with them and talk, and then
That's
do it, because they're
exactly.
yeah, because then they feel like, well, my life all these years was a lie. You
Yeah,
always knew that you were going to divorce.
that is a fact because
Yes.
I went through my children blaming me for a good period of time because I didn't talk to them about divorcing. I just made a decision based off of the situation. And I would tell anybody, when you go through a divorce, sit down. You guys, if you can, have a table discussion. Your children, like, what do they call that? Table talk.
Yeah.
Sit down, have a table talk so that each person understands. And then whatever questions, and again, you have to be mature enough to do this. But whatever questions those children have, what they need to know ultimately, if they don't even know the dynamics of what happened, that they are not the reason, and that they will be loved throughout the entire time. They don't have to worry about missing anything other than the fact seeing us in the same house, but they need to know that they are not missing nothing as far as us as parents. Because what happens is when one parent is not there and then the other one is there, that other parent that is there catches it, like
Mhm.
literally. I went through my segments, I caught it. And then when I got done with one, I was like, okay, we great. The other one had a problem. I was like, oh my God. And you really do have to deal with it. And I thought to myself at that moment, and I was okay. I made sure my children had counseling. And even as grown children, I tell them, and if you feel like you still need to get it,
Yeah. Well,
I
I
will
was
listen.
fortunate. I asked him, I was very concerned about that. And when I
Right.
had moved out of the big house into the
Mhm,
rental, I asked them
mhm.
again, and they were like, no, but it was such a stressful environment. I mean, even when we went to Wisconsin Dells, it was just so stressful that
Yeah.
it was better for us to be apart. It really was. Unfortunately, the kids were not. They didn't give me any
And
grief
see,
for it.
that's good. And see, and mines didn't see either way. So they didn't know. This kind of was a fast thing. Like
Oh,
my when I say fast for them, like my younger
yeah, I know
daughter,
what you mean.
yeah, she most definitely had some inklings like, I think, but because things were not right in the forefront, and she to this day was like, you just didn't believe me. I'm like, no, that's not it. There was nothing at that point that I could say, hey, this is it. You know, um, but yeah, these children, they can be affected, but I'm glad. Um, I verbally express with them, and anything they want to ask me, I tell them sometimes, as a parent, you be like, child, I want to talk about this again. But what I had
Yeah.
to really realize is because I'm over something, don't mean they over it. So
Yeah.
if they need to revisit it, whatever it is that needs to help get them in the clear, let's do it. And that's even with him. And I applaud and I promote them talking to call your dad. Up until they probably turn like 18, I would be like, hey, don't forget to call your dad. It's his birthday. Don't forget it's Father's Day. Like, but because that I'm about to be 50. Honey, my daddy's 76. And this grown man still calls me and say, y'all in the house? Y'all all right? You know? So I don't know nothing about having nobody who don't do the random routines. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
And
my
see, I don't. My dad, well, he would just call every once in a while and just say, I just wanted to hear your voice, So I didn't have the traditional dad. And I'm not even gonna lie, my dad would flirt with my friends, girl. And then my friends would flirt with him because he was on the radio. So when
right.
in high school, he'd be like, your little friends came up here. I was so embarrassed. But my dad I always wanted like a regular. I had a friend who had a country dad. Like
Yeah.
she would be embarrassed by him, but I would be laughing, saying, I wish my dad was like that. Because my dad flirted with all my friends. But she was like telling me that like they lived on a busy street. And cause he from the South, he'll pull off his little lawn chair and sleep in the front yard. Like he's sleeping in the backyard. And so just stuff like that. I thought it was so funny because
Yeah.
she had that traditional father where
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
the father who was,
Yeah.
always trying to
Let
play,
me finish.
hey, that's your
Yeah.
friend. I'm like, Daddy, that's my friend.
That he was
um,
young, still at her. He was still young.
yeah, so okay, so now with me, I know I adamantly worked on my marriage. Like we had stuff, but that wasn't I realized in that marriage I wanted connection. But I know some people they just don't work on their marriage. So why do you think people will stay in a marriage and just refuse to work on it? And I'm talking about
Same.
both parties at this
Yeah.
point.
Well, some of them is, believe it or not, some people stay in a marriage to really taunt the other because they can know that they got something else going on outside of this whole marriage,
Yeah.
but they refuse to let him or her go and be with somebody else. That's not going to happen. They would rather keep you, torment you, leave you in misery, and then let you go because they do realize that he or she may really be a great person, but they're not willing to give you up just in case it don't work out there. And then the other part of it is some people just do what they do because they can. Literally. I've seen people just do what they can do because they can do it. He or she let them, so they did it. And it's the sad part, but it's reality.
But
And
see,
when I
that indicates to me that they didn't get the person who's allowing it didn't get married for the right reason. They're there for something else. That's what that indicates. That
But you
yeah,
got
I
to
married.
remember, people get married because they're looking for mother figures, looking for father figures. They're all of these reasons fall still under the umbrella of I'm going to do these things for these very reasons, not because I actually am in love. People are stay in marriages all the time and will get a divorce after 50 years and be like, I wasn't in love. I stopped being in love when after our 25th year. You're like, who stays for 50?
Yeah, but people
But
people do. But I think like a lot because like when you see that bickering couple, but
yeah,
they still together. A lot of times there's some offense there, and
yeah,
they're not willing to reconcile. They want to torment, and I believe that's what that torment comes in, where I want
yeah.
to torment you because I'm still dealing with offense from 20 years ago.
People get in marriages with problems. That's why I said you need to make sure you got you together.
Yeah,
Don't just jump and get in on marriage and you got unresolved issues. I mean, there are people who have been raped that should not be married right now
yeah.
because it opened up a door for so much infidelity. It caused them to have so many insecurities. It and I'm not knocking because you're innocent. When somebody raped you, you're innocent. But what I'm saying is you shouldn't be marrying sometimes
and
and you
and
haven't
and
dealt with
that and that's what I'm saying. Like part of the reason why we need to in our singleness, if you're looking to get married, you need to
that.
deal with yourself. But so many singles are so busy trying to get married. And it's like, dude, you got trauma. That's why God ain't sent it yet.
Yeah,
Because you have something that's going to get in the way from the person who's praying for a good wife. And so
yeah,
we get, of course, it's not bothering you now, but when you sitting there in the bedroom and he's trying to touch you, now you having all of these, triggers, and
yeah.
it's not fair to him because, like I said, I know women who, or I've known women who,
Mhm.
like that's their thing, but they're not even trying to get help in the marriage, and so it's like you expect him to keep taking care of you because
Yeah,
looking at it from this point, what if he say, somebody when I was 10 or 12 somebody robbed me, so I don't want to financially support you, so
yeah.
you ain't gonna want to be in that marriage. And so what do you think? Like I don't get women who feel who and they will, like if he goes out and cheat, oh, they will throw the book at him. And
Mhm,
but they won't admit. That's actually what my book Holes in the House is about,
mhm,
leaving
mhm,
holes in your house. And you
mhm.
expect, like, you just decided, oh, we don't need sex no more as a woman, and then he goes and step out on you, and then now you trying to throw the book at him like you righteous.
But what the words say about it's better to put that in the horse's belly than you know what I'm saying. First of all, you cannot. Sex is for marriage. That's key. That's number one.
Right.
So so for people to get married and say I can't, you shouldn't have gotten married
Yes.
because you're creating an issue for him or her. Some people be like, well, I'm gonna love them through it. Yeah, you can, but guess what? Little Willie probably, get excited. Little Susie get her beats. So what I'm saying is, don't open up a door to create something in your marriage because you didn't want to deal with what you needed to deal with prior to marriage. If he or she loves you, they'll be willing to wait until we can get this thing kind of worked out.
But to a man's defense, he may not know. But this is why when we're sitting
That's
down
why I
talking,
said,
we shouldn't be doing too
yeah,
much giggling. We need to be actively asking questions to get to know this person to see what we're up against. Because people
yeah.
want marriage because they think security, which, yeah, there is some security there, but you have to also serve. And so if you don't, you don't feel like sex is a big thing, not to you, because men and women are wired differently.
Yeah.
We can sometimes shut down on sex.
But you
I
never
don't know.
know. But
I'm just
this is
saying.
the thing, right? And listen, when that time comes, I'm most definitely ready. However, I will say this: when you have been a victim of things, maybe you're not as affectionate, and you're dealing with a spouse who is, but you decided to keep that part from him. That's wrong.
Right. But
That's
I'm saying the spouse should be asking questions because this is
but
what
even
and
then,
the Holy Spirit will reveal you because I'm telling you, there's times that I've been like, oh, and then I'm like, and the Holy Spirit would nope, that's not it. And then maybe later sometimes he'll show me why. But
Mhm.
as a believer, our help really is the Holy Spirit. And if we're
Yeah.
actively saying, is this a good partner for me? He'll show us things or clues that aren't really that accessible to the eye. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, because guess what though? This is another thing too. Warnings is before destruction. Some
Yes.
things may not be a destruction in the beginning, but it turns out to be a destruction toward the end. And you have, so I know people who have gotten married, and their first day on their honeymoon, they were not able
They
to do
knew.
anything,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
and they were not able to perform with their spouse because they really dealt with, oh my God, he touched me and had a flashback.
Right.
Say whether he or she asked, this is me as a person being a victim before who has gone through things. You better open up your mouth because that is not fair to anybody. And that's,
Or
I think
wait,
that's
or
self,
this, or
that's self.
this, or this.
Mm-hmm.
You have a woman who, because I had a friend who had this issue. You had a woman, you married a woman. She told you she was over it, but she struggled with homosexual tendencies.
Yeah,
And then you
yeah.
marry her, and then
Mm-hmm.
she's like, oh, she doesn't really like men. But honestly, she probably got married trying to prove she was over it. That's not where you roll the dice. That's not where you want to play because you're playing with somebody's whole life.
This is why it's important to have a relationship with God. I'm gonna say that again because I'm telling you, He said, "In all thy ways, acknowledge Him." And I literally used to be that person who'd be like, "Come on now, that's common sense stuff. I shouldn't have that." He said it. He meant
All
it.
means all.
All. Even that thing that you think. My mom taught me this. Be specific in what it is you want God. If in your spouse, on down to what it is you need intimately. Be specific. The Bible says, make your requests known. So you need to literally be communicating not only to him or her, but communicating to God. Listen, God, this person, I like him or her, I'm interested or whatever. But God, these are my struggles, and I need you to help me in this area because I need to be the wife. I need to be the husband that they need me to be. And God, that
Mhm.
you called me to be. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got to be open with the thing, but you also got to be honest. There's too many secrets in relationships. And you want to
Yeah.
wait till we say I do to tell me all your secrets. If you would have probably put some of them secrets out, because some stuff I probably was asking, but you want to talk around and take me to Mississippi instead of going to Chicago because you're trying to get out of it. But again, put that part on me. Did I acknowledge God while I was still
Yeah.
getting excited because I thought, oh, she's fine, he's fine. You
Right.
know, we excited about the outer appearance, and they all messed up on the inner.
Yeah. And
And
and the thing is, men pick wrong too. So this isn't,
yeah,
this isn't something that women do. However, I
yeah,
think, we've been getting the short end of the stick more in this day and age with the men looking for people to take care of them.
it's
Um,
but it's a shortage on men. It is. It's a
yeah.
shortage on men.
Yeah.
So and the thing is, again, even in your sexuality, um, we have made so many things okay in this world today. And the Bible is still right. And I'm not knocking anybody because people be like, oh my gosh, she bashing people. No, I'm not. God still loves everybody because he does. And there's no big sin, no little sin. Sin is just sin. But reality of it is, if you know that you battle with that thing, you should really pump your brakes
Yeah. But
because
the other person should too though. Like, because
yeah,
I'm telling you, I've seen people and I can tell there's a spirit on them that shows that they're
mm-hmm.
homosexual. Um, and because some women want to just get married so quickly, or just,
Yep, yep.
or oh, this man is interested in me, I may not get another chance. But you got to think you're
Some people are
building a
using you
whole
as a
life. You're
hideaway.
building a whole life though with
Yeah.
somebody. You don't want to build a life with somebody who's showing you he might not or she might not be the good fit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
people
just
put you
acknowledge.
on as the front because really they know in the eyesight of God and eyesight of people that you're supposed to be a man and a woman and a man. So they'll put on a facade. They'll find, man, sometimes they find beautiful
Hmm.
women or very attractive men because it's a facade, an image that they have to uphold. So people will get into these marriages And sometimes, unfortunately, Sheree, it has been people who were aware.
That's what I'm trying to say. I've
They
no
were
like
aware.
I've been at weddings and I'm like, they can't see that.
Yeah,
You know, like
yeah,
I know they see that. I know they see that spirit on him. I know they see
yeah,
that spirit on her. And
yeah,
they, just ignore it and they unhappy. You know, like when my discernment kicked in, a lot of times I'm not even paying attention. And so
yeah.
if I'm, if I'm showing up somewhere and it hits me, especially when it comes to marriage, God gave me this, I have a burden for marriage. And so sometimes
Mhm,
things just stick out when I'm not looking for it. And I'm like,
mhm.
okay, they ain't, they obviously ignoring that, especially that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you
And a
see them
lot
years
of
later and
times,
they got the frown face. They're not happy.
yeah, yeah. But that's when I say again, you have to know yourself. Um, don't even put all the emphasis on him or her. You need to know you.
Yeah.
Because right now, no guy could not walk up and tell me what I don't know about me. Because it's been almost, what, 13 years? I done had a lot of time to do some research about a Curetia and what I like about me, what I don't like, things that I'm working on because I'm like, yeah, Curetia, you probably should have did that different. And you have to be honest with yourself. Like you really do. People are not
But
genuinely honest with themselves.
the point is, when you're single, you are supposed to get to know yourself so you can
Yeah,
introduce you to the person you say
exactly.
you
You
like.
are.
But there's a lot of people who are single who are not doing the work. They're so busy still looking. And it's
Yeah,
like, sit down and look for you.
yeah,
And then when somebody come up before you, you can explain you to them.
yeah. And you want people to make you happy when happy comes from within.
It does.
Um, I tell people all the time, stop looking for so and so to make you happy. Are you happy? What makes you happy? Do you know? Because you expect me to make you happy and you didn't even come happy. I can't make you be something that you didn't come with. Some things are just a God thing. Now, I can be that extra piece that's going to add to what you already have. But I can't come here and make you this person that you battle with every day
You know
because
what, Karita?
mhm,
That feeling of the cup.
mhm,
That was, I got so much revelation out of my old marriage. But a lot of times you come in, and I don't know if you've seen this before, but people who were very happy, jovial, and they
mhm,
got married, and it's like they changed. It almost like something was taken from them.
mhm,
Because it was like you
mhm,
come in and you're bringing both your cups, and
mhm.
the whole point is that you're supposed to pour into each other.
Yeah,
But somebody who is this is why it's dangerous to try to save people, because you come in with your joy and then they don't have none and they steal your joy,
yeah.
because you're pouring out but nothing is being poured back into you
That's that take,
unless you
take,
are
take.
connected to God. Yeah, it said
Yeah,
take, take, take. So
yeah.
we do, like me, literally my dad used to say, you gotta have a you got a man, you got a man. I'm like, no, because I was happy or joyful. It was joy. You
Uh-huh.
got to look, you just got that glow. I said, that is Jesus. And then
Mhm.
this one guy was trying to say, look at you. He's like, since we've been talking, I noticed I've made you happy. I said, you was nothing to take that. I've been this before I met you. I said, and then he got quiet. I was like, no, you're not fit to take that from my Lord, because he gave me my joy. But I come with my own joy, and I
Yeah.
know that. I've even had somebody tell me that I don't know too many happy people, but you
Mhm.
are one of them. So,
Yeah.
just being, when you are satisfied with yourself,
Yeah.
well, I ain't gonna say I'm always happy with myself, but overall, the Lord has given me a joy that can't the world it didn't give it to me, and it can't take it away.
Can't take
So
it
I
away.
understand this joy, because something, when I'm going through stuff, I can be sad, but the next minute I could be doing something else. It's just when I remember that, so I understand that joy that doesn't make sense, because
That's why it
sometimes
says the joy of the Lord is your strength.
yes, it is my
You know,
strength. So
and you
that's
have
why I'm
to
standing.
pull from that. And I think once that goes back to again your relationship with God, and understanding that He sent the Holy Ghost back as a comforter because He
Yes,
knew there will be times that we need to be comforted. He knew that there were times that we were going to need a guide or an instructor to help us along the way, and that's why I said stop looking. And I had to learn this. God was like, I'm talking to God about stuff, and He's like, "Pretty, that's not even your job. when you learn your job, you learn your position in your role.
Yes.
When you learn it, then you begin to move differently. I had to understand that that was not my assignment. I'm thinking, God, well, these they doing this and they doing that, and he like, but that ain't even your job. Your job, if my son down on the cross can't save him, what you think you gonna do?
Girl,
And
you know,
so,
we were just having that conversation last night. We call Belong Group. We call it
uh-huh,
Belong Group on Wednesdays through
mhm,
Transformation Church. I belong to Evolve, but I
yeah,
still am affiliated with the B Group. So last
uh-huh,
night we were talking about there's this one person where there's a family member that is kind of struggling with suicide. And so when
mhm,
my father committed suicide, and I just shared with her, I was upset with God for like 2 years because I'm like, God, why didn't you show us, the signs? We didn't see any signs that he was suicidal. And I was angry, like, you had me write this book on suicide, and then a month later he hung himself. And so when I calmed down and he was able to speak to me about it, he said, if I couldn't save him, what makes you think you could have? He had his mind made up. And so he was
mhm,
telling me that curse of the choice. He had it, and the one of the reasons why the Holy Spirit is here to comfort
mhm,
us, because people get to make choices and their choices affect us. Because
yeah,
he ran away from his problem, and he left problems from for us. So now
mhm,
I had the Holy Spirit to comfort me in that. But
yeah,
he had to show me, you talking about roles. That wasn't
mhm,
your job. You told
yeah,
him about me. He chose not to choose me. And so if
that's
I couldn't save him, what makes you think you can? You not me.
it.
And so I
Yeah,
had to learn that, like,
yeah.
what my role is, not even in marriage, but just in everyday
And you know
life.
what else? Take from that too. You can't push you on anyone. And that's what I love about God. He is such a gentleman. He don't push himself on us. You have a choice, a chance, and an opportunity. Now, if you walk past those choice, chance, and opportunities, that's on you. We have the same thing with individuals who we meet. They have a choice, a chance, and opportunity to get to know a Sheree, a Karita. And if you decide to walk past it and mishandle it, that was your
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and
So,
I'm learning that I'm not God. So I don't have to give people 55 different chances to keep hurting me. You
right.
understand what I'm saying? Like I can love you with the love of the Lord and move forward. But I don't got to keep opening up the door for you to keep on stepping on
Absolutely,
me.
girl.
So again, I love Karita enough to be like, I won't do time one times two. And some people think about that and think, oh my God, that's so harsh. No, it wasn't. I didn't have a bad marriage. But I can honestly say I won't do times one, times two. There was maturity, there was growth, there was a lot of things that needs to happen. But there was a few things that transpired that I just didn't want.
Yeah.
And you gotta be okay with that. It doesn't make either person bad. You just have to know what's for you and what's not. And at one
Absolutely.
point in my life, I was doing things because okay, now I'm pregnant, I got a baby. Jesus, okay, we just gonna make it work. You know what I'm saying? Be real enough with yourself to know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so platforms like this help people to understand because a lot of the times people won't keep it real or the opportunity maybe doesn't present themselves, or maybe people just worrying about what people gonna say. Hey, whatever your reasons are, love you enough to know what enough is for you. And if too much is too much, like literally learning that you cannot save everybody, learning that I'm not for everybody. I had to learn that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
guess what? As much as God has done for the world, so many people will not make it in to see him.
You're right.
So who am I to feel like I may be, well, God, I really love him. You're like, yeah, he don't even love you. And you keep missing it. And you keep letting him step on your heart because you trying to make somebody love you when I'm just loving you free willing and I'm giving you all this love and you can't even receive my love because you caught up in some love that this person can't even give you. Why don't you wait for me to give you the love that you need?
Oh,
And
that's
so
good.
I learned to sit down, fall back. And so my fallback game right now is strong because I don't want to keep pushing love on people who can't give me the love that I really need. And guess what else? For a long time, what I thought I needed wasn't what I needed. I
Yeah.
had to learn that. We had to go through some things. You know what I'm saying? That's why I said I'll never be like, oh, I was a perfect wife. No. But was I good when I stand on 10 toes and say that? Yes, I was. But I wasn't perfect because I'm human and I make mistakes. But
Yeah.
learn the difference between mistakes and trying to deliberately hurt somebody. And when you
Girl,
know you hurt somebody, then you immediately correct it and try your hardest not to do it again. And if you're dealing with a person who keeps doing it, oh, you want to keep doing that. Now it's time for me to make a decision.
Yeah, I had to realize like what it was. I think well I know because I didn't have parents who were married. So I didn't see
Mm-hmm.
marriage modeled in front of me. And so I know what
Mm-hmm.
it was because a lot of stuff that happened to me I didn't even see my mom go through it, but it was what he was exposed to, I believe, in a marriage, and he was
Mm-hmm.
modeling that. So when I became his wife, it was he looked at me differently than he did when I was his girlfriend. And so,
Mm-hmm.
like but I have to say I wasn't perfect, but I was committed. And I
Mm-hmm.
tried, and I really gave my best efforts. I tried, and it wasn't always the best way, but it was
Right.
my effort. I tried writing him letters to tell him, screaming at him, cussing at him, kicking,
Mm-hmm.
tearing stuff up. I tried everything from good to bad. And that, when I exhausted all of and God, and I got God in
Mm-hmm.
it and nothing
Yeah.
still worked. Like you said, like if I can't get to him. So I do know I walked away with no regrets.
Yeah.
And so did I do everything right? No, but I did it with the right intention. I wanted to try
Yeah.
to connect.
And you know what I would tell my old self then to my new self now? I would really tell myself, Karita, you are worth the love that you're looking for, but make sure you're giving it.
But
Because
but then we
not,
had to learn love too, because it sounds like what me and you shared was that we were used to the performance love. So God had to show me when I went to Texas, God showed me he literally took me there to get me by myself so I could hear him. So he was showing me the difference between performance love and perfect love. Perfect love is like how you love on your child. They
mm-hmm,
didn't have to earn anything for you to love them. They got here and you just loved them and you took care of them. Performance is where you're trying to do stuff for people to love you. And so a lot of
mm-hmm,
times we think that's love. But no,
mm-hmm.
perfect love is loving you, even the good, the bad, and the ugly.
You know what? For me though, and I like how you just gave those analogies, but for me, I wasn't an affectionate person. Now I genuinely love, I do, but I wasn't that, oh my God, oh, let me run up and kiss you. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't that person. Now, not that I was that person like, don't touch me. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
But I just wasn't that. And
You
that
didn't
comes from,
initiate it. Yeah. Okay.
no, and that comes from past trauma that took place in my life. Had nothing to do with him, had nothing to do with, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
That's why I can tell people, make sure that you got things together, because I didn't
Right.
realize I wasn't the most affectionate. And then when I hear my children be like, Mom, you was not the affectionate mom. Like, now I love them, I kiss them, but I wasn't the okay all day or no. But do they know I love them? Yes, because I made sure. But I realized that that was the thing that I lacked. And so I was like, yeah, I need to work on that, because the average man is probably gonna be like, girl, smack my butt sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
and I'm just saying
And
whatever,
girl,
you
and that was me, girl. I was very affectionate, and I had this thing with butts for a while, girl. Even like why? I remember my sister-in-law. She said, because my ex was telling her like Sheree rub on butts and stuff, and so one day we had to share a room in the hotel, and she was like, "Okay, Sheree, if I wake up and you got your hand on my butt, you gonna wake up with broke arms." Or broke wrist. But I had a butt fetish for a while. I don't know why, but that was part of my affection. Like
yeah,
where I
yeah,
just
yeah.
in the
But
middle
see,
of the
that's
night.
what
So
I'm
it wasn't
saying.
even me like initiate. It was just me in the middle of the night rubbing butts, girl.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, you have to really know you and what it is about you, and then work on changing that. But don't expect everybody to just become accustomed to that's just you. That
Yeah.
answer is stupid. People be like, well, that's just who I am, and I don't like it. You know what I mean? Because that could have been the thing with my ex. He could have been like, well, I don't like it. But at that moment where I was in my life, I couldn't focus on that because it seemed like I was wearing so many hats. I couldn't focus on,
Right. Did he
being,
ever tell you that? He never told you
um,
that?
yeah, he did, but not in that way. But this is what it meant. You know what I'm saying? He was like, he wasn't a big complainer, but he would be like, "Dang, baby, you could walk up and just slow me down sometimes." I was like, "Okay,
Okay.
So
And see,
now,
I like feedback like that.
yeah,
Like that. This is what real marriage is. It's
yeah,
serving the other person.
yeah,
So if
yeah,
if that was because what I got was
uh-huh,
I didn't get direct communication. And so I am I get it now. Like when women say, well, he's supposed to, like, obviously he's supposed to know. Cause I had to go through that obvious stuff. I'm like, no, you tell him and let him get used to you. Like he learned you. But
Yeah.
he used to do that with me all the time. Instead of
Yeah.
coming out and saying, Sheree, I need this. He
Yeah.
would do stuff like do stuff indirectly to hurt
Yeah.
me. And then
Yeah.
in an argument, he'll say it. I'm like, why did you just say it? And so
But
I,
see, his communication skills and yours were different. Like even when my ex said it to me, I was like, boy, kind of like throw it off. But then even when I tried it, I realized like, Crete, this is really not you. And I was like, oh, and I would like struggle to do it because that wasn't a part of me. And I had to learn. And that's an area, like I really pray about because I'm like, God, I wanted to be in a relationship. And they're like, girl, I'm gonna need you to walk up and grab me sometimes, hug me, jump on my back, something. And so it's funny because I like with my children, I'll be like smacking them. They like, "My, you doing too much," But I'm trying to like at least be a little bit more affectionate because my children say it too. So like
mhm,
it's a thing. If more than one person say it, then there's probably some truth to
right.
it. And so owning that thing, and again, like I realize and I recognize when at the end of the tunnel of this, he was like, well, it was stated, well, he didn't feel love. And I'm just like, okay, that's stupid. Like, no, I wasn't the most affectionate, but I had to realize, well, Krita, if a person feel away, they probably did feel that way. And I'm thinking, well, I'm doing everything. What you mean you don't feel love? Because people feel like, well, I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, I'm working, you know
Right.
what I'm saying? I'm
The
doing that.
performance love. But no,
Exactly.
but we have to get to know, like, one of the things that I learned, and this is actually in my first book, Holes in the House, but learning your love language, because a lot of times, like, your love must be servicing your service.
Yeah.
So you like when
Yeah.
people
And
give you a
I'm
service.
very much so that, yeah.
But a lot of times we give out the love the way we receive it. And everybody,
Hmm.
we all have different love languages. So that's
Yeah.
one of the things. That's why if I sit here in my singleness and I learn me, I can explain to you what my love like, what makes me feel
Exactly.
love. So when when you affirm me, I love it. I love to be affectionate. I love to sit and
Yeah.
communicate. I love
Yeah.
togetherness. So being able
Yeah.
to explain you, and then when I'm saying I want to love on you, I'm loving
Yeah.
you based on my knowledge of your love language, and so that
Exactly.
way you're feeling loved, and
Hmm.
and then I can tell you, and then you can give me the love.
And it's been reciprocated because
Yeah,
communication is key. And what I find is when we don't want to acknowledge that that's an area we struggle in, we be like, dude, you doing too much. And it's not doing too much because this is what a person is saying.
yeah.
And sometimes we can push our loved ones out the door. Now, I'm not giving anybody a pass to go cheat, okay? But what I am saying is you can push your loved one out the door when you don't listen to what it is they're telling you, even in an indirect conversation. Some of us know our spouses well enough to know what they're saying, even when they're not saying it. But because sometimes we want to be prideful and silly and we trying to make a point, we'll be like, well, that ain't what you said. Like, no, they said it. You just chose to not listen. And so you have to own your area in what it is you can do to make something greater or not. And I'm old enough and I'm grown enough and wise enough to understand that these are things that we have to do in relationships. And that's the same thing with God. He said, you have not because you ask not. So there's
Mhm.
nothing God is requiring of us in a relationship to do with our companion that He doesn't
Right.
require with us. So if you think about it in that way, it may help us or whomever it is to have more of an effective relationship because we got to keep God in the dynamic of it. And I think that's part of the problem too.
Oh, that's big. Yeah, that's a big.
God is not, we say the vows because we're in a church facility in front of people. But if God is not in the forefront of your life, that makes a huge difference on your marriage. And we
and
can
and both and both parties have to have a relationship with him, not just a
relationship.
religious relationship,
Yeah,
but a real, like, real life relationship with him where we can hear. Because I am learning, or I have learned, that the purpose of God, like, without the light, because
yeah.
Jesus is our light.
It's a,
Without the light, we're fumbling around in this world in the darkness. The Bible has
mhm,
these principles in there. And so we don't have to fumble around. We can just go to the word, our basic instructions before leaving
before
earth,
leaving. Mhm.
and we can find these principles, and apply them. So
Yeah.
one of the biggest, I don't think anybody should be marrying, when you marry a prideful person, you're marrying trouble.
Yeah.
Two people who say, I need help, are probably good candidates for at least future marriages. But when you say I need help, what you're saying is God, God, I need you to help me. You're saying I'm open so that you can guide me. So the Holy Spirit guides us. And so the way it's supposed to work is that we're not supposed to be each other's gods. We're supposed to have God in our relationship. And in our singleness, we learn how he talks to us. And
Hmm.
that way, when we're married, he can tell us when we're about to have an argument, he can say, don't say anything.
Yeah.
And then
Well,
he can even lead us like certain things when your spouse is going through a trauma is coming up. Go in there
yeah.
and hug them. But if we don't obey him,
You gotta have an ear to hear. That's why he tells us
yeah,
be slow to speak and swift to hear. You can utilize that from male to female. If you apply the word literally, and people probably be like, she always says something about the word. I do, because I understand that the word is
absolutely, yeah,
right. And I understand that even back then, if I would have applied the word the way I needed to, I would be in a different seat right now. So a little late, but for sure, catching on to what it was I needed. And if we literally listen, literally, I'm telling you, God is so amazing. Like he speaks in so many different ways, so many different languages. Nobody who speaks several different languages can say, I didn't know. Because
right.
God is so amazing, omnipresent. He speaks in all the languages.
And he comes
He
on your level, even your
Exactly.
vernacular.
So even
He
if you
speaks.
in Ebonics, he got you.
Yeah,
Even if you be like, well, I can't read, so I don't understand that. He breaks it down where a child can understand who doesn't even comprehend or everything right at that moment.
girl,
So
he has told me, girl, sit down. Like just girl, sit like I needed to hear it.
right. So if he can do that, he can orchestrate in your marriage to know when to hold and when to fold. Literally, there is timing for everything. There are times when you just need to be quiet.
Yeah.
Picking and choosing an argument. Some of this stuff is not even worth it. You
Mm.
know what? Learning how to be a bigger person. Say, you know what, sweetheart? Okay. And he may come back and be like, babe, I had a rough day. It wasn't even about you. Let me start over. How was
Yeah.
your day? You know what I'm saying? But that's the wisdom kicks in. You have to learn when to be quiet and not thinking that, oh, he punking you or he telling you. No. Submissiveness comes in all shapes, fashion, and forms. And you have to be submissive enough even to God to hear when he's talking, let alone to your husband. And so even husband, likewise to your wife. Because there are times that your wife doesn't need you to be this dominant person right now. She may need you to be this big old pillow that she need to just cry on your shoulder and go to sleep and wake up and be like, "Oh, I needed that." All right, babe, what you want for breakfast? You understand? Some stuff don't even require conversation. But when you're not allowing God to lead you, you miss that because you get to talking out of turn. You could have
Yeah.
heard the Holy Spirit say, "Be quiet," and you be like, "No, because I got to get my point
Yep,
across."
going to, uh-huh. Yeah, exactly. But what you said is really humility, and the word tells us that the fear of the Lord, the reverence of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So wisdom for one to know we need help. We
Yeah,
can't do it. And I get, you teenagers and you in your 20s, but by the time you make it to 30, some things that you've been doing, if it ain't working, you probably need
leave
to
it alone.
change up.
Yeah, yeah.
So I want to go to this next question. And this one is a question that I asked the Lord a long time ago. And I
Mhm.
believe, as this pastor once said, sometimes God doesn't just answer your prayers, sometimes he puts you in the text.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely something that I want to come out, but I have to see him finish, he got to finish it up first. But I want to ask you this question. Why do you think many of us are or have missed out on our ordained spouses, God ordained spouses?
No, that's just so easy to me because we didn't listen. We didn't listen. Some of us have went because somebody said that was your husband, not because God told you, and you went. Some of us just refuse to simply listen. And when you can't obey, you can't stay. Literally, like we miss the mark because we don't listen. It can be sitting right there. And sometimes, too, this is the other part of that. We're looking with a natural eye. So we have myths because we want tall, dark, and handsome and bald headed. Sometimes God is like, little short and stumpy over here is your husband. But because you're looking for tall, dark, and bald heads, you're like, and he like, I just told you that was your husband. Because really, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder.
Oh
And
yeah.
and we are looking for certain things in certain people, and short and stumpy and frumpy got it. For real. That's really your 6 feet man. And it's funny, and I use that because my mom always wanted a 6 foot man. And she got my dad who was like 5'8". And what's hilarious is my dad is 5'8", but I promise you he got 6 feet arms. She said, listen, that's my 6 foot man. You know, and but the thing is, when we are looking with a natural eye, again, we can't hear because we're looking at it. And you cannot hear from God when you're focused on the thing that you just want. You'll
Yeah.
walk past it because you
Yeah.
want it. And you're saying, well, God, this is what I want because we like that scripture. He'll give us the desires of our heart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he will. He will. But that doesn't mean that's your husband.
But
It doesn't.
people take that out of context too, because he'll give you what to desire for. He'll give you the desires of your heart. Because a lot of our desires, we don't realize it, but they're from the secular world as idols. Like, because we've been influenced by what they say is a blessing,
Right.
and what they say is acceptable, and so we come and we start praying for God. I want
Yep.
this based on the idea that we got from the world, and God is saying, no, I have a different package. So he's trying to give us what to desire for, which is people with healthy spirits, or a spirit like him, a man
And
or a
like
woman filled with the spirit of God. Yeah. So
like
but
him.
I think you touch on it. You said sometimes, we end up with the wrong spouse because we move too fast, we're too anxious, and the word tells us to be anxious for nothing, but that with all things we ought to pray with thanksgiving, yes, and make our requests known. So then we never ask God for our mates. We go out, we're
No.
choosing them, and
Yeah.
that's pretty much evident even in the church. We're not
Yeah.
asking God for our mates. We are going out choosing them. Sister Susan is putting it together. Pastor
Yes,
Paul
ma'am.
is putting them together.
Ooh, all of
Everybody
that
but
business.
God is
Yeah.
putting them together. And then we value the wrong things. Like, we're
Mhm.
valuing, because you have men in the church. For one, the word says that a man who finds a wife finds a good thing. So when you have a wife, I don't think it's necessarily if I see a wife with a woman and I make her my wife. It's if I
Mhm.
see you as a helpmate, then I found a good thing.
Yes.
So a lot of times they're not, they're valuing the wrong things because they're looking at, is she pretty? Is she fair skinned? Is
Mhm.
she sexy? And like you
Yes.
said, from the male, your mother's perspective, not mother's, but a woman's perspective, he might say, nope, this is short and frumpy. Or
Yes.
and with a man, because it's like,
Mhm.
we're not even the men in the church, even sometimes, especially if they have titles and positions, they feel like, oh, I'm supposed to have some chick. They still have that mentality that the world
This
has.
is
I have to have a
the piece.
token person on my,
Yes. This
yeah,
is
on my
our
side.
piece. Yes.
And then they
Yes.
get the wrong chick, and she don't like
Mhm.
people. She don't
Yep.
really like the church, vibe.
Mhm.
And he trying to
Yep.
go and do what the Lord had placed on his heart. But he got to wrestle with this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
then
guess what? It has caused people to lose ministries.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't think if Satan used Eve to deceive Adam or to set
Hmm.
him up, you don't think he using spouses? He putting spouses together. He doing that with
Yes.
some spouses together. I feel like when you have a big calling, that he definitely uses, he baits you that way.
Definitely. Yes, he
Um,
does.
and a lot of times we are choosing with the wrong spirit.
Yes.
So you got somebody, because we're dynamic people. There's a lot of parts to us.
Hmm.
So, just because somebody can preach well, I don't know how many people with awesome gifts that I walked up on and their character sucked. So we're
Yes.
all a work in process, but we
Yes.
we choose people that are kind of like us.
Hmm.
And so a lot of times, like when a man ends up with a woman who's lustful, he probably chose her out of his lust. Like
Yeah.
I knew a friend, he was very open about he struggled with pornography. Well,
Hmm.
he got a woman who
Hmm.
wasn't pornography, but it was something else, So, but
Right.
it was too much for him because
Yes,
one lust spirit outweigh the other lust spirit. So you
most
choosing with the
definitely
wrong spirit.
spirit.
And we
Yes,
got to make sure that when we're choosing, we have the relationship with God and we have his heart, and we have accepted his desires for our life, and then we can choose the right mates.
yes. And I'm in agreement 100% because we want to make sure I can't stress it enough. For those who desire to be married, um, those who are
And
single
a
and
healthy marriage.
yes, a healthy, not just a marriage, but a healthy
Yeah.
marriage. Um, but those who are comfortable being single, be okay with your position currently right now until you figure it out. Like, and it's okay to try to understand what needs to happen or to figure out what you need to do. It's really okay to do that. I just
Hmm.
wanted to say that because um, everybody is not predestined to be married, and you're gonna have to be okay with that too.
Yeah,
Because
but I think if you desire it and you ask God, if you're willing to prepare, he'll give it to you. One of the things I know, like, because the world is so jacked up, but he
mm-hmm,
knows, like, he has, what was that one prophet where he said, I'm the only one left? Was that Elijah? And he
I
said, I
believe
have
so.
700 other prophets just
Yes,
like you.
yes,
So in this day and age, we do need God to help us because so many
mm-hmm,
people have lost morals and values, or good morals and
yes,
values,
a lot.
but they're there. So I believe if you have a desire for marriage, he will, but you have to be willing to work on yourself because he's not showing up if you ain't moving. And so
That's the
you
point
might,
I'm making. Be comfortable where you are until you get yourself in position. You need to get in alignment.
right.
A lot of the times, again, we want. The Lord gave me this message, and I shared it a couple of years back. He said they want the blessing, but they don't want the cup. So many people want the oil, but they don't want to do the work
Yeah,
that comes
right.
behind it.
Hmm.
It's the same thing. We want a marriage, but we don't want to really do what it takes to A, prepare for the marriage, B, when you get in the marriage, and C, what it takes to endure the marriage. Because it's a process to this thing. It is.
Absolutely.
It can be great, but it's a process to being single. Like, listen, everybody single is not miserable. But then you have some people who are single who are still trying to figure it out. They're like, listen, I struggle with this. I struggle with that. You know, and you have to like literally be in a position, be like, okay, let me stay before God because no, this isn't my story right now, but Sister So and so says she's struggling with that. God, I'm preparing right now, I'm praying in advance because I don't want that. You know what I mean? Because being single is more than just being single.
Hmm.
You really, if you think about it, it's really a wonderful time for you to really get to know God to the fullness. But a lot of the times, the enemy doesn't want us to see that part. He just wants you to see that you're by yourself.
Yeah,
And
or we just don't have a desire for God. We have a
yes,
desire for his presence,
yes,
but not his presence. Meaning we have a desire for his things, but we don't
oh
have a
yeah.
desire for his presence. And
I
what
say
we
we
don't
want the oil.
understand,
I want the
what we don't
cup.
understand is that regardless if we get the boo or not, we're going to still need God because we
Yes,
think, he's not going to live forever, or he
no.
might leave us, so if we leave God out of the mix,
Yep.
we're still going to end up needing God later, is what I'm trying to
Yes.
say.
Yeah. Most definitely.
Yeah. So I want to conclude with this thought, for people who are actually in a marriage where your spouse won't budge. You're doing all that you know how to do, but they're not moving. The good thing is you're doing all that you know how to do because that's what God wants. You made a covenant, you
Mm-hmm.
made a promise to them and God. And
Mm-hmm.
so even if it was not the best decision, because you made the promise, you have to honor that because the word tells us that it's better to not make a vow than to make a vow and not keep it. And so you have to let him lead you out if you want his blessing for the next marriage.
Yes.
But do know, like, because I was like, I did it. I prayed a lot. I just had faith that God would change it around, and He didn't. And so I had
Mm-hmm.
a conversation with God. Why did you have me go through all of that? And and it ended up in divorce.
Mm-hmm.
So he explained to me that the two have to choose me, and he's not going to force himself on the spouse that we didn't pray for.
Yes.
But what we can be encouraged is that I know he trained me in the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So for those who are trying, and you haven't got your word, he hasn't showed you that way of escape yet, be encouraged that either this is training for a new spouse or that you will eventually have that good one. So he won't leave you out there. He's a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. And so be encouraged that, if you are doing your best and you have him in the marriage and you're praying and hoping your spouse would turn around, and your spouse, if they don't budge, then he just be encouraged that he is preparing you for the marriage that you will be trained for. Hey, Rock family. Sometimes certain topics can trigger old emotions. So if at any point during this head trauma discussion season, you feel you need to talk to someone, please do. And for some reason, if you do not have access to a trusted source, feel free to check out some of our recommendations by visiting www.rockwithmenow.com. Once at the homepage, select the Rock Challenges tab, and then filter through the list available to see what may possibly suit you. Hope you enjoyed today's show. And remember to like, share, and subscribe. Oh, and leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you.